We interrupt this program to bring you a special report.
Welcome to the inaugural episode of Out of the Noise, where we engage with remarkable individuals within our hobby. Today, we are thrilled to introduce our esteemed guest, whose extensive list of expeditions, contests, and awards is awe-inspiring. Please extend a warm welcome to Adrian, known as KO8SCA or Charlie Alf. Adrian, thank you for being on the show.
Adrian, it's great to have you on the show. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening. With this introduction, you're going to make me blush.
Thought we'd have a little fun with it.
Okay.
You've been there to do the introduction, you know?
Adrian, you have an impressive resume in your amateur radio career, but everybody starts somewhere. What's your background in amateur radio, and how did you get your start?
I started when I was a teenager. Actually, my dad gave me a book called Kon-Tiki, and he said I'm going to enjoy it because I liked books about remote islands and traveling, Robinson Crusoe type of reading. So I got this book, I was reading it, and actually the part that interests me the most is the fact that the Norwegians that did the Kon-Tiki expedition in a balsa raft from Chile to the Polynesia. They were trying to figure out if people from Polynesia came from South America. But in any case, the important part for me at least was the fact that they had something called a radio, and they were radio hams, and they were in touch the whole time with hams around the world, in particular the ARL station, Whiskey 1 Alpha Whiskey in Connecticut. So I was totally mesmerized, and maybe a couple of years later visited the local radio club, and I got hooked. I got my license and got on the air. And actually, maybe a year later, I was, once I got my license, I remember it was a Sunday morning, and instead of doing what normal teenagers do, you know, running after girls and do other crazy teenager stuff, I was playing with the radio. Usually on a Sunday morning, I was trying to mostly do CW so that I don't bother my parents, and you know. And but that morning there was not much activity on CW, but the bands were absolutely packed on SSB. So there was this strange call sign, Zulu Alpha 1 Alpha. Didn't quite know what it was. I checked out my country list and didn't know what it was. And they said, you know what, work now, we'll worry later. So that was a big let's say point in my ham radio career, because on the other side of the microphone was Marty Lane, the famous expeditioner, Oscar Hotel 3 Bravo Hotel, who was putting up on the air for the first time Albania, and that's why the pileups are so crazy. So in any case, I got in the log, and I begged my parents to give me a couple of dollars, put it in the envelope, and got the QSL card a few months later. I went to the club, and usually I was the kid playing with the radio that nobody was paying attention to, and that was fine by me. You know, people there were just doing grown-up stuff. And I was showing the QSL card to them, and all of a sudden it was quiet. Everybody was passing it from hand to hand. It was a new one for almost everyone, obviously, because they just got on the air. And that's when I heard or learned about what a de-expedition is. And it got me thinking, and I said, one day I will do that. And actually, a few years ago, I got the chance to go on a de-expedition with the famous Marty Lane, and that was, I would say, really a nice point in my ham radio career.
That's a nice highlight, yes.
Which expedition were you on with Marty?
Um, well, I went in Virgin Islands as it was Victor Papa 2 Victor. It was a celebratory the expedition, and then I did a few others in Finland. I took me around and I visited the Radio Arcala, the station with I would say one of the biggest on earth, the biggest ham radio station on earth, and operating from there was like a dream. And then Market Reef and many other stations and all in islands, and I did a few contests. I was there for more than a month. That was fun.
No doubt about it. So the VP2, that was Montserrat?
No, actually, let me pull. If you pull up my QRZ page, um, it's um, sorry about that. So it's basically a Danny Well anniversary of the expedition. The call sign was Victor Papa 2 Victor Bravo, and he was Danny Whale was a crazy sailor that many years ago started this concept of the expedition where he couldn't reach some place. If there are no hams, why not go there? So he would go from island to island, and um, the Yasme Foundation supported him with the boat and many other expenses to visit this island. And so we used his call sign as anniversary the expedition.
Oh.
So that was fun.
Cool.
From British Virgin Islands.
British Virgin Islands. Okay. Now you've got a big list of the expeditions and a big list of contests, including WRTC, and I think you're gearing up for Italy here in about a month, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
How did you become interested in participating in these, the expeditions? You kind of gave us background on that, but how did you get involved with getting invited to them?
Well, after went to college and I got my first paycheck, I went straight on eBay and bought a radio and antenna, and that was my dream. Before that, I was just using either somebody else's station or a club station or something built at home.
Mm-hmm.
But now I had the joy of having a radio, and soon after I bought the radio and got on the air of my own station, life took over. I needed to focus on a career, family, and all that. So for many years, I put ham radio on the backside, and then one year I had a little party at New Year's Eve with some friends, and I was at the change of the year, everybody puts their own wish. What am I wishing for the next year? And I was just sitting down and thinking, what am I gonna wish for the next year? And I said to myself, this is what I want. I want to go on the expedition. So I went into my bedroom. I looked under the bed, and the radio that I purchased many years ago, my first paycheck, was still there, full of dust. I took it out and I said, this is what I'm gonna do. So right after the holidays, I started sending a lot of emails to different team leaders, and I was excited and waiting. And I said, okay, let's see, where am I going to go next? So I think I got maybe 10 different answers, and they all were nope. I guess the idea was you can't go on the expedition if you don't have experience going the expedition. But you can't get experience unless you're going to the expedition. So it was like a chicken and the egg problem. So I was a bit upset for a couple of weeks. So my wife, who is smarter than me, but don't tell her I said that.
They're all smarter than us.
Yeah.
No doubt. They married us. We married them.
Yeah, I guess. So she's like, okay, you want to go to the expedition? So what prevents you from going on the expedition? Put your radio in a bag and get another bag for the antenna, and let's go. We'll pick up a place and just go. And I was thinking for a little bit, and I was thinking, she's right. Why not just go? So we pulled up a list and tried a few Caribbean countries. We realized that getting a license for most of the Caribbean islands is actually pretty easy. Um, One of the easiest one was Turks and Caicos. I got the license in a few hours after I sent an email requesting one. So that was impressive, of course. I said, "This is fun." It took a few trials, and I liked it so much that I think in the next 12 months I did 3D expedition together with my wife, and it was fun. Basically, we rented a house and far away from the normal touristy places, so that nobody bothers me or putting antennas and so forth. Had a lot of adventures, people asking, "What are you doing?" And remember, it was I think in Grenada, went into a hardware store to buy some wire, and then they actually published in the newspaper next day there was some American that bought all the wire in the in the hardware store. I was gonna put a dipole for 160, and I figured it's easier to buy it at the local store than taking it with me from U.S.
Yep.
Little did I know that nothing is made on these islands; everything is imported. So the wire was very expensive. So nobody bought that much wire in that hardware store since the hardware store opened. So of course it was a big event. So a lot of things like that. It was. Quite each one of them was a little adventure. And then I was asking people left and right, "Hey, if you know anybody that can take me to the expedition, I'll go."
Mhm.
And one day I met somebody that said, "Just go to Dayton." So what am I gonna do at Dayton? I figured, you could, if you want to buy something, you just go online. If you want to talk to somebody, just email them or give them a call. Why go to the headache of going to Dayton? But it turns out that that was the answer. At Dayton and Visalia and other places like this, this is where the team leaders are meeting with their team members and make plans for the expeditions. And if you're convincing enough and buy enough beer, then you might be joining one of the expeditions. So to make the story short, I met a bunch of Australians. They were going to some remote islands in the Indian Ocean, and I told them, take me. I said, well, we would, but these things take a lot of planning. We're going there in a couple of months, and we've been planning this for more than a year. You won't be able to get tickets. It's not that easy. The journey. And I said, all right, well, next time when you go, keep me in mind. So maybe a couple of months later, I got a phone call from them saying that one of their team members had to bail out for personal reasons, and uh, right then and there, I think I was in a train or something, and I bought the the flight tickets to get to Australia right there in the train.
Yeah.
You wasn't missing
So
out, was you?
so this way, I went to Cocos Keeling and the Christmas Islands in the Indian Ocean with some Australians. I had so much fun. I said to myself, "Why did I waited that long to go on these the expeditions?"
Yeah.
So before I got home, got invited to some other the expedition and what it was Spratly Islands.
Hmm.
And then one day I went to Visalia, Hamvention, and I met Ken, a Norwegian that liked to go by himself in the expeditions in Africa.
Hmm.
I guess Africa is the place to go if you're Norwegian and have long winters. And I asked him, why you go by yourself? He said, well, I tried to join the expedition, nobody took me, so I decided to go by myself. So I told him, well, listen, next time when you go somewhere, just, maybe we'll go together. And he says, as a matter of fact, I have a project and I don't think I want to go by myself. I said, okay, whenever you get the license and you're ready, just call me. So a week later, he called me back and says, okay, you ready to go? Yes, I'm ready. Where are we going? He says, we're going to Somalia. Oh, I said to myself, from all the places in Africa, that's the one you chose to go. Oh boy, I was a lot. I had to put a lot of thinking into that, but I was impressed of his management skills, logistical skills, and we got everything resolved. From bulletproof cars to five armed guards, and we got everything we needed to get it done. And I really had a lot of fun. And that was actually the guy that turned out to put together with two other Norwegians, the famous Bouvet, the expedition. And of course, a lot of these things happen in the meantime. And one day I asked a friend at field day, I said, if you know anybody that could take me in the expedition, maybe let me know. And he said, you got to go to this WRTC thing because if you go there, people will be begging to take you. I said, all right, I'll go to WRTC. What's WRTC? It turned out to be quite a challenge to get there because you have to qualify. Yeah, it's not an easy thing. But in the end, if there's a will, there's a way. And so I went to WRTC in Germany 4 years ago, or 5 years ago. And I had so much fun. And I decided this is something I should do again. And that's what I'm planning to do in beginning of July in Italy. And
Well,
if everything fails and nothing works out, at least I'll end up with pasta and wine. So nothing to lose.
yeah, you good, right?
Yeah.
But with that, with your contesting resume, I'm sure the D expeditions are like, okay, yeah, we need this guy because he can work a pile up, he can run them fast. Because the thing is to hand out contacts, right? So, um, so you mentioned Bouvet, and obviously the background shows Bouvet, probably the most anticipated D expedition in the last 20 years that was successful. So, tell us a little bit about your trip on the boat over.
Well, in total, we spent almost 2 months away from home, mostly at sea. It was not easy. It was quite a challenge for everyone. Most of the expeditions that I've been to took between 6 months to a year to put together. This one took almost 3 years. So that says or shows how complicated it is to get to the most remote uninhabited place on Earth. No wonder it's number two. It's number two because it's hard to get there. It's hard to stay there. It's expensive to get there. It's dangerous to be there. It's all superlatives that most sane people will say nope. But the 12 of us plus a consultant, we decided to go. And I don't regret it a bit. It wasn't easy, but nothing easy is worth doing, the saying goes. So we did have a lot of fun, made a lot of friends, and I had unique experiences that I'll probably not have again or similar ones. um, it took us 14 days to get to Bouvet. We stayed on the island about 2 weeks, and then we headed home on another journey of 10 days. We encountered a few storms, two storms while on the island, and a third one that was significantly aggressive the day after we got off the island. And that was one of the reasons the team voted to leave the island after 10 days on the island. And so, although we haven't reached the goal that we initially stated, we did get there, operated, and got back home safely. So,
Well,
all
that's
in all, I think that's quite impressive in itself.
absolutely. I mean,
Definitely.
you guys were putting your life on the line to put contacts on the air to light that island up. I know you went through a lot of training, physical training, and preparation training, and what you could take, what you can't take, all of that. So tell us about the training you went through.
Well, I personally went to Norway 5 times last year in preparation for just the expedition. A couple of times with other team members. We met um, 2 hours south of Oslo at the super station there where we assembled and tested everything from antennas to tents to even the toilet because we were told that we have to whatever we bring on the island, we have to take off the island, and that includes human waste. Um, some of our team members had mountain climbing courses in case we needed to scale the cliff on Bouvet. And I went for an ice climbing course also in Norway with some professionals, together with other team members, of course. And we learned how to scale ice cliffs in case we needed to scale that cliff when we got there. So we prepared for every possible scenario. From this point of view, we were lucky. The weather shaped that cliff so nicely that all we have to do when we got there, we put a ladder and we went up about 10 feet on that ladder. And from there, we just need to walk a couple of 100 feet to the camp where we set up the antennas and stayed for almost 10 days. So preparations were, from many points of view, our doctors prepared quite a bit. We had two doctors and dentist on the team. They prepared everything from how much food intake should we take. We had food to last us a long time, 45 days on the island. The amount of calories needed to be calculated. There's a trade-off between the weight and the amount of calories that you have to take, all the safety procedures that needed to be followed to the T. And all those paid off. We were able to scale the cliff. We were able to get there and back safely. We were able to get a boat that got there with a significant budget, but at the same time, we saved a lot of fuel by sailing and not motoring like the previous attempts. And of course, the boat also had the motor, and we had fuel for that as well. And so all these details that you think and you put a lot of thinking into took a long time to prepare, and that's why the 3 years that I mentioned before.
So, what was the boat ride like?
It was wild. We made use of a lot of pills and a lot of plastic bags.
Oh, I can imagine.
Well, the idea is that we use these scopolamine patches, and those are good. You basically put them before you get on the boat, and then after 3 days, the body gets used to the motion, and then you're okay. You're not sick anymore. You're a bit woozy, or dizzy, I should say, not dizzy, but a bit not yourself, but still you're able to function properly. One of the interesting things is that the busier you are, the less prone to seasickness. So one of the things that the captain did, he set up a schedule where everyone had to um, go on the deck and drive the boat, in addition to keep watches twice a day for about an hour and a half. So um, the truth is, every time you get on the deck, you do not get seasick. You get seasick when you're under the deck and you're doing something like watching the screen for too long or things like that. But in the end, the seasickness was not a real issue. I think, in a way, boredom becomes an issue 1 or 2 months journey at sea. So from that point of view, we've got solutions. After listening everybody's stories and jokes, and then you see that people start repeating themselves. Then you say, okay, you go to the next step, and we convinced the captain to let us put an inverted V from one of the masts of the boat, and that really kept us, you know, excited and occupied. You are actually interested to see what the guy is working, and it was fun. We even took that opportunity to um, show the crew of the boat what exactly what we're doing. They understood the part where ham radio operators talk to each other, but they didn't quite get the or grasped the idea of the 5-9.
Mhm.
So after a little bit, they got it, but they used it as a joke or some kind of a, I should say, way to get our obtain our attention. They wanted us to do something. They'll say 5-9, 5-9. And so we had fun. On the boat, you're supposed to laugh at any type of joke, and it's exciting. You're basically among friends with nothing to do, and we did have the Starlink. Amazingly, it worked. Before we left the trip, quite a while ago, we contacted Mr. Musk and said that we wanted internet. And believe it or not, he replied, and we got it. We didn't quite believe it at first, but so I called tech support a couple of times and I asked them, okay, if we get internet, what kind of speeds are we expecting? In New York, I was getting around 300 megabits per second, which is impressive for a satellite connection. And then the customer service person said, well, if you get a signal there and the Starlink works, you're going to be the only customer, so you're going to get the full possible speed. And that was true. Actually, on Bouvet, the internet was faster than in New York. Bouvet is outside the shipping lanes, so
Yeah.
there's no such thing as I get a ride on this boat to take me, that passes by Bouvet. There's no such thing. So you want to go to Bouvet, you got to get a boat that goes to Bouvet for you and take you back. So because it's outside the shipping lanes, the satellites normally are not that interested in covering an area where there's nothing happening,
Yeah.
except a bunch of hams going for the pileups. So every 20 years or so, I guess. So anyway, that was exciting, and they kept us occupied, in touch with family. That made it a bit easier to be away from home for 2 months.
So with the invention of Starlink, you should be able to do more de-expeditions because you could work remotely then, right?
Yeah, that was a fun thing. In our return trip back, I was looking at the contest calendar, and ARRL CW contest was on, and I was thinking, well, it's so sad I can't be home to play with it. And then it dawned on me, I've got a fast internet connection. Why not take advantage of it? So I connected to the 4U1UN station and did the contest from there. I did about 1,000 QSOs, and that was the shortest weekend on the whole trip. It really kept me busy.
I can imagine. So I imagine being that in close quarters with that many folks for that long, you made some lifetime friends out of that group.
Yeah, that for sure. It's one of the things that happens on all the expeditions. You go with someone on the expedition, you go through a lot of things. The expedition is usually away from populated area. You're confined in a small space, and you all have the same hobby. You speak the same language of radio, so these are friends that you definitely have it for a lifetime.
Awesome.
Absolutely. So how do you get from the boat to the island?
Well, we had 4 steps in our approach to get to the island, depending on the weather and and maybe some other factors, but mostly because of the weather. At sea, and especially in those parts of the world, there's an old sailing adage that holds true, which is if you don't like the weather, just wait a little bit. So the weather not only is bad, but it changes constantly. So we said, if everything is perfect and the weather is great, we'll go in and operate 12 radios and everything that entitles that, fuel and food and generators and so forth. If that doesn't work out, we'll try with 8. If that doesn't work out, we'll try with 4. If that doesn't work out, we'll try with 2. So once we got to Bouvet, the weather was not too good. It was so-so, but still acceptable to land by Zodiac. So we sent reconnaissance team of 3 operators and our consultant that we hired to help us, and they got on the island, and the purpose was to figure out what's the best part of the beach that we can land on, and to find a way up the cliff where we're going to put the camps and so forth. So the four people got on the island, and after a few good hours, the weather changed, and the captain said the Zodiac has to can't come back to the boat anymore. So the four people stayed on the island, got stranded on the island, I should say, and our boat needed to be hiding behind the island because of the weather. So the four people stayed there. We tried. The next day, the weather was still bad. We couldn't get to them. The third day, the weather was getting better, but not good enough. We were able to get some supplies by Zodiac, but we're not able to land. So the people on the island, the four people, got supplies and tents and anchors and everything that's needed for them to, including the ladder, so they can set up the camp or the trail to the camp. On the fourth day, the weather got good enough where Zodiac landing was possible. We got the four people that were on the island and brought them back to the boat. And a boat, we had a meeting, and we decided that we have two options. Our consultant said the first option would be to wait for good weather or better weather, and then we'll go by Zodiac and continue the plan that we had. Or we can use one of the backup plans, which was instead of landing by Zodiac, we land by rope and swimming. So that was a backup plan that was tested in Norway the previous year, and we figured out that it's a workable solution, although we didn't expect it that we're going to use it. It was a backup plan. In any case, our consultant swam to the island and drilled into the rock and set up certain anchors, and then two more buoys into the sea. And so the 4 points, two on the sea and two on the island, created a closed loop system. So the idea was we get into our protective suits, and with our harness, we hook up to the rope, and then we swim towards the shore. And the people that already got onto the shore, they will pull onto the rope, so that it helps get into the shore faster. And once the operators got all on the beach, then we continue the same procedure with the equipment. The only caveat of this procedure of using this backup solution was that we couldn't bring a lot of equipment. So from the 7 tons of equipment that we initially planned to bring, we only were able to bring maybe 500 pounds approximately. So, sorry. So the idea was, well, we'll go on the island with 2 stations. We'll get things going. We'll get the pile up going, and then 2-3 days later, when the weather gets better, we'll just continue and use the Zodiacs to bring more equipment. But this way, we're not waste time just waiting. Unfortunately, the good weather never happened. About 10 days later, we got an impressively good weather window, and we had 2 options: either stay on the island and hope for another good weather window, or we go safely home. So we voted to go home, since the next day, that good day that we were experimenting, or no, that we were waiting for to get off the island, was actually the quietness before the storm. So we said we should not go over that big storm while we were on the island, and so we decided to get safely on a boat, and from there wait for the good weather and sail back home.
John, I think you muted there. You need to unmute yourself.
Yeah, okay, that helps. What kind of contingencies did you have in case you got stuck on island? I mean, talking about the weather being there. If something had happened to the sailboat, what was the contingency?
We got on the island with enough provisions. This was all calculated in up front. The idea was that we get on the island for 2-3 days, but get provisions for at least 10-14 days. And so we had enough water and fuel to last us a lot longer than we needed. And we had provisions, we have calculated to have enough provisions on the boat for us to use for the island for at least 45 days. So we did have enough. From that point of view, it was not an issue. Even the people that got stranded on the island for the few days, for the 4 days on the first landing, they were not really stranded in a sense. They had a little tent. They had enough provisions to last them for about 10 days, and fuel and water, and they had a change of clothing. So yeah, it was all from that point of view. We spent a lot of time into making sure that was not an issue.
Okay. Well, so you're back from Bouvet. I heard rumor you've got another DXpedition coming up. I think the announcement was made at Hamvention, was it not?
That's correct. The next DXpedition that I'm going to be participating on is Swains Island with the call sign Whiskey 8 Sierra. We are a team of 10 people from Germany, US, and Holland. We will be operating with 6 stations. We'll be on an island for about 2 weeks, and the expedition will take place in October, starting October 4th. Swains Island is a private island, and it requires the permission of the owner to get on the island. And once you get there, staying on the island is not that easy, in a sense that it's extremely hot, and the mosquitoes, I'm being told, are bigger than a bird.
They might carry you off, right?
Yeah. So we've been in contact with the previous 2 large expeditions that were on Swains Island many years ago. So we've got a lot of details where, although getting to the island is not that complicated, in the sense it's just a couple of days at sea. The biggest disadvantage, disadvantage is the heat, extreme heat, and that's not good for the operators and the equipment, and the mosquitoes are really aggressive. So, but again, if it was easy, it wouldn't be rare in ham radio either. So
Exactly. Well, that's great. Well, congratulations on your induction into the CQDX Hall of Fame. That was a pretty big surprise, I imagine.
yeah, it was it was a surprise indeed. For me, Bouvet Island, the expedition, was the expedition number 30. So I guess that's one of the things that it was mentioned during my induction in the Hall of Fame, in addition to helping significantly with the for United One, United November radio club at the United Nations to get it on the air. And since then, in the last few years, the club was really active. We actually made more QSOs than all the years or the previous years put together.
Wow.
So pretty active from all of a sudden being silent for many years.
That's awesome.
Definitely.
And you got WRTC coming up in July. Who are you teamed with on that adventure?
My teammate is Sierra 55 Mike. His name is Adi, which is short for Adrian. I guess that's karma. Adi is part of the K1 Lima Zulu contest team.
Hmm.
It's a team they also operate from quite a bit. And that's what I met him before Germany. Actually, the story is a bit longer, but in short, is I had a different teammate in Germany, and for personal reasons, he had to bail out, and that was maybe a week before the WRTC, and I was absolutely stuck. I thought it was so easy to just because it's so hard to get to WRTC, it'll be so easy to find somebody. And again, I sent a lot of emails, but I had no luck. And a lot of people said, "Well, too soon," and it's during the vacation time. Others will say, "Well, I'm good enough for WRTC, but not that good." All kind of reasons, and all make sense. In any case, I was again asking left and right, and then Krasi, Kiwan Lima Zulu, whom I met in some previous the expeditions, was a real gentleman. He was able to find a teammate for me. Not only that, I was missing some components for the equipment that we needed to bring to WRTC, and he gave us the backup equipment that he had for himself because he also qualified for WRTC. And I was absolutely impressed. Usually in any other sport that the opponents don't really give each other help or equipment or something. Never heard of that in golf or tennis. Oh, my racket is broken, and the opponent comes and says, "Oh, take mine." you know
Yeah, F1 teams
that
exchanging titles.
yeah. So I was absolutely impressed. I said nothing, compares to the greatest hobby in the world, ham radio. So
Well,
that's how I ended up with Adi, and we actually connected. We had
good.
a lot of fun, and that was exactly what I was looking for.
Now, have you operated since then together in any kind of contest situations?
Yeah, yeah, we operate from K1 Lima Zulu in
Okay.
different contests. I also, Krasi also supports a radio club in Bulgaria, Lima Zulu 5 Radio, and I visited that club a couple of times as well and operated from there. He is one of those people that pushes the technology to the limit, and things that I saw implemented in his stations are uh, they absolutely amaze me, especially because I'm a computer guy.
Hmm.
Uh, that's what I do for a living. When I see things the way he implements them there, I'm absolutely amazed. So that basically says it all. It's like going to visit NASA with ham radio. So
That's
so
awesome.
it's fun. Yes.
Absolutely. What advice would you have for anyone who's wanting to get started in the expeditions?
Well, first of all, see if you really like it. Go to park, take some equipment, and see if you enjoy it. If you do enjoy it, try something more complicated. To go to an island in the Caribbean, so this way you don't have too much headache with the customs or licenses or things like that. And you'll run into a lot of issues. Don't ask me how I know, but you realize that there's no Radio Shack on any of these places. So if you forgot something or something doesn't work, you're the only one they can blame. But you do learn a lot. I was impressed with myself, I should say, that um, you learn very quickly what works and what doesn't, how you get to be an expert of how you pack things. You learn of how to be a minimalist and don't take luxury with you when it comes to radio, but at the same time you also push it to the limit in the sense that once you get there to raise pileups, you need a little bit of power. You need to think about all the things that you're not encountering, like home, for example. You don't have much issues with power. You go to one of these islands, power going out for a few hours is, oh, it just went out, not a big deal if you ask a neighbor. So it's so you learn a lot of things, and after you do a couple of those, you really, if you really still like it, then you can go to the next step and joining a larger the expedition, where now it becomes more of a higher level kind of job to participate, because each team member in the expedition gets assigned a job or more from the team leader, and it's a lot of work. Sometimes I remember certain days and weeks when I was preparing for Bouvet, it felt like it was a second job for me. Hours and hours and hours of things that you have to work on and figure out. And like, for example, one of the beams that I was entrusted to know how to assemble it quickly and properly. So first time I assembled it, I think it took, I don't know, 8 hours. Second time, about 4 hours. Third time, 2 hours. And then, we all discussed and said if we can't get it down to less than 45 minutes, it's not good enough. So you think about all the solutions. What can you do to be able to assemble an antenna in 45 minutes or less? So then you start coloring the pipes and say red pipe goes to the red pipe. You don't care. It's easy. The red one goes to the red one. The blue one goes to the blue one. The To avoid losing the screws, you got to get a big magnet and put all those there, because once you lose the screws in the grass, forget it, or in the snow, you're not going to find it. And simple things like a drill bit. If that drill bit is red instead of its black, normal black color, you're going to see a lot easier once you drop it, because you will drop it, especially if the
Yes.
wind is so ferocious like it is on Bouvet. So you learn a lot of these things, and some of them really pushes your limits to a point where you have to ask yourself, do I still enjoy it? And if you say yes, then that's that means you got a ticket to go to the expedition. One
Oh,
thing that I learned is, believe it or not, there's a high demand of people um, that are needed, or people that can go on the expeditions. Team leaders actually looking for people
yeah.
willing and able to go to the expeditions. It's You have to be willing to do so. You have to have the finances to go, to the time, and the technical abilities, and so forth. So there are not that many people available. So if someone wants it, could happen.
Yep. Well, yeah, the money's a big thing. I know kind of what you guys spent individually to go to Bouvet, and that was it's a far cry from doing a simple vacation de expedition, right?
Yeah, that's true. But a Bouvet it's an extreme case.
Yeah.
This one thing that's for surely going to happen for me from now on, at least, is from here it can only get easier, because there's no other one, the expedition out there that's more difficult to reach your place on earth than Beauvais. So anything else from here on is going to be easier. But you know if you like going the expedition, it doesn't mean that you have to go to Beauvais every time.
Mhm.
You go to Caribbean, you can fly back and forth for a couple of $100. um, so it's not really an expense. You can find ways to go a lot cheaper. Like I said, the Bouvet is not a good example for people that want to start going to the expeditions.
Sure.
For me, it was the expedition number 30 and was still hard.
Yeah,
So
Yeah.
no doubt. Yeah, I've done a couple of quick ones down to the Caribbean on St. John in the USVI, and I did one in 18, and I did one last fall. And
Alright.
last fall was the better of the two. I learned a lot on the first one. This one I had a house I can operate from, and instead of operating off the beach, and I logged about 3,800 contacts, so it wasn't too bad.
Yeah, having fun is the name of the game. If you're
Absolutely,
having fun, you'll do it again.
absolutely.
Definitely. Well, Adrian, I think we're going to wrap it up. We do appreciate you being on the show. Do have one last question for you, though. If you was only able to operate one band for the rest of your life, what band would it be and why?
Well, 20 meters, it's always open. When you're up in the solar cycle, you have the pleasure of enjoying all the bands. But 3 years ago, felt like everything was dead, but 20 meters was still open. So it's nice to have a band where you can always have fun. Of course, you can go on 6 meters, and it's always open. That I like the technical challenge out of it. I like to do EME because it's hard from the technical point of view. But
Absolutely.
the moon is always there. So, it's only you as the operator that you can blame if something doesn't work. So that's something that I would enjoy as well.
Oh, good. Well, good luck in Italy. Hope you bring home the big prize.
All right, thank you for for entrusting me with that. But again, I have 3 goals for WRTC. Goal number 1, I want to make sure that all the equipment works smoothly, because if it doesn't, that's my fault, not anybody else's, and that is something I can control. 2, I want to make sure I'm not going to be the last one in the list. Out of the 62 teams, I definitely don't want to be the last one. That's one of the goals. Uh, and the third one, and most important, I want to have fun.
Absolutely. That's why it's a hobby. We're here to
Yeah.
have fun, right?
Exactly.
Well, congratulations again on qualifying and your induction into DX Hall of Fame and your expeditions, and we look forward to working at Swain.
Well, thank you for having me, 73, and
73.
see you in the pileups.
Absolutely.
Right.
We interrupt this program to bring you a special report.